Hello there, welcome to one more video. In today's video, aimed specifically at daughters and sons of narcissistic mothers, we're gonna talk about how to differentiate between healthy shame and guilt and unhealthy, toxic shame and guilt. The first thing we gotta get into our head is that everything that exists inside us has a function, it has a role. So even something as uncomfortable as shame and guilt have a specific role for us. And it's pretty easy to understand when you think about pain. The role of pain is to draw our attention to something so that we can analyze what's working, what's not working, what's causing the pain, and take different attitudes, different steps to correct that pain, right? So we can feel something else. Nobody wants to feel pain endlessly and for no reason. Well, shame and guilt are a form of psychological pain, oftentimes accompanied by anxiety, that they show up in order to relay a message, because that's what emotions are. And the message that they relay to us is that we've done something wrong according to some moral system or some system that we've internalized of what's right and wrong. Now, this is the part that I want you to think about. Shame and guilt pop up when you did something wrong according to a system of right and wrong that you internalized. This doesn't mean that you feel shame and guilt when you do things that are considered objectively right and wrong, as if that were even possible, right? So just the fact that you're feeling shame and guilt doesn't mean that you actually did something wrong. And this is why it's so important to differentiate between what's healthy and what isn't healthy. Because the problem is with what you internalized as being a system for right and wrong. If you had a narcissistic mother or father, then you basically learned that existing is wrong. Having your own personality, wishing to be respected, not wanting to be bullied, not wanting to be made to feel invisible, having your basic needs met because you were a child, a powerless child, right? And even as an adult, having your basic needs met in a relationship, all of these things, you might have learned that they're wrong, because you might have learned that it's wrong to exist in any way that isn't something that the narcissist has approved of. Right? So if you internalize this system throughout your whole life, and you think that every time you're going to choose your own career, you're going to do something that mom disapproves of, or you're going to make a decision that, it's healthy for you, but that other people don't understand, it's really important for you to ask yourself, okay, but am I feeling that this is wrong because of this weird system of right and wrong that my mom or my narcissistic dad gave me? Or am I feeling that this is wrong because it actually is wrong according to what I believe is right and wrong? And this is where we need to learn how to differentiate between what is ours and what isn't ours. So let's just remember a few things about shame and guilt when it comes to the narcissistic family. First and foremost, remember that you were trained, if you're the daughter of a narcissist or a son of a narcissist, you were trained to feel guilt in order to be manipulated into behaving, doing whatever the narcissist decided at that particular moment was right. And this is a favorite tool, a favorite weapon of narcissists, the guilt and the shaming. The shaming gets left over. It's left over in our bodies, in our mind, through this feeling of inadequacy. We feel this deep shame about who we are because we think there must be something really wrong with us. After all, if we can't be loved by our own mom or dad, how can we ever be worthy of love? So there's that sort of shame, right? So there's the guilt and the shame that come from the fact that you didn't have loving parents, and they thought that you should feel bad about asking for love. And then we also have another issue, which is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse that has as a goal making the victim believe that they cannot trust themselves. So when someone gaslights you, you see things with your own eyes, you hear things with your own ears, and you think things and feel things with your own mind and body, but yet you second guess yourself, because at some point, someone really important to you, probably your mom, your dad, your caretakers, they kept insisting that what you saw and what you heard and what you felt wasn't real. And you might have heard things like, you distort things, you don't remember things the right way, you imagine stuff, or I've always said that you had some sort of mental problem. yeah, you really need to get therapy. So all of these little comments that we hear our narcissistic parents making about our perception of things train us throughout life to believe that our perception of things is wrong. And then it's really hard because we were trained to feel guilt in order to obey our parents, and because there's the gaslighting going on that makes us think that we don't know how to think and differentiate between right and wrong. It's super hard for children of narcissists to differentiate. So the thing is, it's super hard, but it's also super necessary. If you take a look at the central narcissistic wound, the narcissists, they swing from thinking that they are the hottest thing on earth to thinking that they are the worst thing on earth. And it's such a drastic oscillation from one extreme to the other that what actually happens is there's an inability to come in contact with the pain of shame, of perceiving that some of the things you do cause problems in your life and in other people's lives, and that they are wrong, So what the narcissist, who cannot feel the pain of recognizing that they are wrong, does, is they use all sorts of tactics to distract people from looking, and distract themselves from coming in touch with that pain. And they can never come in touch with that pain, which is why the narcissist never says, I was wrong, I need help, And instead what they do is they will create this perfect image of like, I'm always right, I'm always right, I'm always right. And then they have to lie constantly to themselves and to other people to explain everything that goes wrong, right? Or they're so uncomfortable when they start perceiving that they've done something wrong, that sets off narcissistic rage, and they start foaming at the mouth and telling you off, doing whatever sort of deflecting, using whatever sort of aggressive tactic, so as not to actually get to that moment where they have to admit to you, oh my God, I was wrong, I made a mistake. So, and this is what we end up doing when we can't feel our shame and our guilt. We either have to no, you're wrong, you're completely wrong, everything is your fault, and we keep lying to ourselves because it's so painful to admit that we're wrong, and then we punish people around us, or we stay in this fantasy-like state where, no, everything's okay, no, everything's fine, and we don't look at what we've done because it's so painful, and then we never correct it. And then we just keep feeling it, and we have to keep lying to ourselves because we keep feeling it, and we're not doing anything to correct it. So the reason I said all of this is for it to be super clear that it is essential for daughters and sons of narcissists and narcissists themselves to be able to feel shame and guilt. And then to ask yourself the following: is this shame and guilt because I've done something that's against my system of what's right and wrong? Oftentimes, you feel shame and guilt because you did something that's healthy for yourself, but your mom would never approve of that. So once you realize, wait a second, this shame and guilt is not right, it's toxic, then once you identify it as being toxic, then there's a two-step process that I will suggest. And the first step for dealing with this toxic shame and guilt is calling forth the part of you that is sane and intelligent and logical and rational and always grounded. There is that part in our brain. Call it forth and have that part of you explain to the wounded part, the part that's feeling shame and guilt and like she's inadequate or he's inadequate. Explain to that wounded part, listen, you're feeling shame and guilt for taking steps towards your mental health that your mom doesn't approve of or your dad doesn't approve of. But it's just because you were programmed to feel this way. It's just an impression that you're doing something wrong. You're not doing something wrong. Remember, you were manipulated. There was gaslighting going on. So explain to yourself that shame and guilt isn't yours, so that you can be completely sure that the steps you're going to take are steps that are aligned with your true self. And then once you've taken that first step of like, listen, this shame and guilt is not yours. Ask yourself what would be healthy and take those steps, even if you keep on feeling the shame and guilt. And this is the difficult part. Oftentimes followers and clients, they ask me, Tari, I'm starting to protect myself and say no and establish boundaries and stuff, and I feel so much shame and guilt. Call that same part of yourself to your mind. Explain to yourself over and over, I'm doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it. I'm doing the right thing. And then do the right thing, even if it's painful. That's how you deal with the toxic shame and guilt. Now, how do you deal with the healthy one? Because that's not comfortable either. Well, the way that you deal with shame and guilt when it's healthy is sit down, take a deep breath, realize that every time you make a mistake and you have an opportunity to look at that mistake, it's also an opportunity to correct it. So even though it's painful, it's super uncomfortable, if you go through the process of figuring out what you did wrong according to your own system and coming up with steps to actually correct it, then you're going to be able to get to the next level. Think of shame and guilt as something that's going to keep you at this level of like a video game, for example. There's certain challenges and things that you have to like be able to do, be able to overcome in order to go to the next level, right? And think of being able to own your healthy shame and guilt and admitting what you did wrong as being in one level, right? And as you can sit down and admit to yourself, listen, I did make a mistake. Then what do? You forgive yourself. Because this whole forgiving yourself part is the part that the narcissist doesn't have. And it's the part that makes the narcissist so desperate to deny that they ever did something wrong. Because they just can't forgive themselves. And likewise, children of narcissists have such a hard time believing that they are worthy of their own forgiveness. But if you forgive yourself for being human, for having done something wrong, I gotta tell you, I as a human being and as a professional, I make and have made so many mistakes. And it's so uncomfortable to look at how I made these mistakes that involved other people, might have hurt other people. But if you don't look at what you did and you don't forgive yourself, then you don't have the energy to do the next step, which is correct your mistake. So own up to what you did, admit it, forgive yourself, and correct the mistake. And then all of that anxiety, that guilt, that shame, it's going to subside. And you're going to feel, wait a second, I'm aligned again. All right? So, ladies and gents, that is all I wanted to talk about today. Let me know what you thought about the video. Let me drink some water here. Let me know if you had any insights, if you learned anything, if you're learning how to navigate your healthy and unhealthy shame and guilt. Also, if you're interested in one-on-one consulting, I do sessions and packages. So get in touch with me at info@tarianarocha.com.br, and I'll explain to you exactly how it works, what I can or cannot help you with, what you can expect, and maybe if we're a good fit, we can do some work together that will be beneficial to you. That's all I gotta say, guys. If you like the video, then like it, share it. If you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe to the channel. We're gonna have more and more English videos in the following months. And yeah, that's it. Let me know what you guys want, what you want me to talk about, and I'll see you next time. Oh, one last thing. There is a group called Free and Empowered on Facebook. It's for daughters and mothers. And join the group. The link is in the description of this video. And I will see you there if you need extra support or you need to talk about this heavy subject in a safe space. Bye-bye.